My mother always said I was dim-witted, couldn't understand what people really meant. So I've always done things by taking words at face value. When father's mistress said she wanted a child, I made sure father could never produce one again. Then I turned around and sent a bloody dead chicken to Miss Lu, who'd called me a vixen. Later, I got married. My husband brought home a woman, saying he wanted to spend his life with her, just the two of them. My mother begged me through tears. This time, can you be a bit more discreet? I nodded obediently. The next day, a fresh female corpse dressed in cloud brocade floated up in the lotus pond. The Marquise's manor was finally peaceful. The 6th day of the 6th month, the almanac said it was an auspicious day for marriage. Too bad Su Yunhei wasn't blessed with that fortune. Early in the morning, people had already crowded around the lotus pond at the Marquise's manor. I sat in the pavilion by the pond holding a bowl of lotus seed soup, slowly stirring it with a small spoon, watching the servants fish out the red-dressed corpse from the pond. The red dress had soaked in the water all night, and the color had actually become even more vivid. At the moment it was clinging wetly to the corpse. Yunhee, oh Yunhee. My dear husband Yuan Chengxi rushed over without even putting on his outer robe, wearing only his inner garments. He jumped into the water, snatched the corpse from the servant's hands, held it tightly in his arms, and wailed as if his own mother had died. Wait. No, his actual mother, the old madam of the Marquise's manor, was still alive and well, currently being supported by maids as she stood under the covered corridor. I scooped a spoonful of lotus seed soup into my mouth. The sweetness was just right. It was you, Shen Nian, it was you, wasn't it? Yuan Chengxi suddenly raised his head, glaring at me with bloodshot eyes. He carefully laid Su Yunhei's body on the shore, then charged at me like a rabid stray dog. The servants tried to block him but were shoved aside. He rushed into the pavilion, grabbed my neck with his right hand and lifted me off the stone bench. Vicious woman, you vicious woman. Who else but you would lay a hand on Yunhei? His fingers tightened, nails digging into my flesh. I'll make you pay with your life for Yunhei. My toes left the ground, my neck in searing pain from being choked. The bowl in my hand fell to the ground, shattered porcelain scattering everywhere. But I still forced out a smile. Husband, your grip is so strong. Even though stars filled my vision, looking at Yuan Chengxi's face twisted and distorted with rage, I suddenly found it hilarious. So I laughed out loud. Because my throat was being choked, my laughter came out hoarse and eerie, and Yuan Chengxi was visibly stunned for a moment. Now's the moment. I suddenly raised my right hand, fingers curled like claws, jabbing straight at his eyes. In his panic, Yuan Chengxi abruptly let go, stumbling back several steps and slamming into a pavilion pillar. I fell back onto the stone bench, clutching my neck and coughing violently. Su Yunhei really was his beloved treasure. Yan Chengsui's gaze scraped across my face like a knife. Shen Nian, stop playing dumb here. Was it you who did this? I raised my head with a hurt expression. How can husband ask me like that? I went to bed early last night, and only came over this morning when I heard there was something to see at the pond. You didn't leave the courtyard last night. I did. Yesterday evening, Sister Yunhee said she wanted to eat the osmanthus cake I made, so I personally delivered a plate to her. She even thanked me. This was the truth. Half the Marquise's residents saw me carrying a food box to the west wing at the hour of you. Staying in Su Yunhei is room for about the time it takes an incense stick to burn. And then Yuan Chengsui said through gritted teeth. Then I went back to my room to sleep, washed up, changed clothes, read for a bit, and went to bed right at the hour of Shu Lvde can testify. She was keeping night watch. LV is my personal maidservant. At this moment, she was standing in the crowd with a pale face. Upon hearing this, she hurriedly nodded like a pecking chicken. Yes, my lord. The madam went to bed at the hour of Shu last night. This servant was guarding outside the door and never saw the madam come out. Who knows if you bribed your maid? Yuan Chengsui didn't believe it at all. His hand was trembling as he pointed at the corpse. How could Yunha fall into the pond for no reason? She was terrified of water. I followed his pointing finger and looked over, thought seriously for a moment. Then my eyes lit up. I know now. Everyone looked at me. It must be that Sister Yoonhae wanted to admire the lotuses at night, but she couldn't swim and slipped into the water. I analyzed with a straight face. Look, that cluster of reeds by the pond has marks of being pressed down, surely from when Sister grabbed them as she fell. Sigh, it is also my fault. I should have reminded her not to go near the water at night. I spoke with such heartfelt sincerity. Yuan Chengxi stared at me dead on, his eyes wishing they could swallow me alive and skin me whole. But he couldn't produce any evidence. There was nothing by the pond, no signs of shoving, no traces of struggle. Marquise, Su Yoonhee personal maid Chungsing suddenly threw herself to her knees. Yesterday the concubine was perfectly fine. It was only after Madame visited that the concubine's mood turned sour. She said she wanted some peace and quiet alone. So she sent us all away. Madame must have said something to upset the concubine. I turned to Chungsing with a curious expression. What did I say? How come I don't remember? Chungsing choked on her words. Of course she couldn't say anything, because when I went to Su Yoonhae's room yesterday, I really only brought a plate of osmanthus cakes. I also casually said a couple of things like telling Sister to eat while it is hot to take care of herself in the hot weather and such nonsense. But I spoke gently and softly throughout. No one could find any fault. Su Yoonha, on the other hand, said quite a lot. She said I had occupied the position of the main wife for 3 years, and it was time I stepped aside for someone worthier. She also said the Marquis loved her, wanted only her for the rest of his life. So why was I stubbornly holding on? Finally, she even threatened me, saying if I knew what was good for me, I'd ask to leave on my own, and she'd still let me keep some dignity. I just kept nodding at the time. Yes, you are absolutely right. I understand now. I looked back once when I left. Su Yoonhee was sitting by the window, holding a piece of osmanthus cake with a victor smile at the corner of her lips. She probably thought I, the dim-witted legal wife, was finally going to back down in the face of difficulties. But she didn't know. When I, Shen Nian, listen to people talk, I always take their words at face value. My lord. The steward hurried over. People from the yamen are here. Yuan Chengxi took a deep breath, glared at me fiercely, and turned to deal with the yamen runners. I stood in place and let out a soft sigh. Madam. LV Yi came over with a pale face. Let's go back to the room. Go back for what? I shook my head and pointed at the pond. Have someone change the water and sprinkle more lime. I am afraid the lotus flowers in this pond won't bloom this year. What a pity. After a pause, I added. Oh right, Sister Yoonhee's dress fabric is quite nice. Wash it clean and send it to the tailor's shop tomorrow. See if it can be remade into something else. After all, it was the Lord's thoughtfulness. Let's not waste it. Luvia's face went even paler. I turned and walked toward my own courtyard. When passing through the corridor, I saw Yuan Chengxi talking with the constable, looking quite agitated. The constable glanced at me from the corner of his eye. I gave him a gentle smile and curtsied, then continued walking forward. The wisteria under the corridor was in full bloom. Clusters hung down like purple waterfalls. I reached out and picked a small cluster, playing with it in my hand. When I reached the courtyard gate, I stopped and glanced back toward the lotus pond. Su Yoonhee. My voice was so soft only I could hear it. Didn't you want one life, one love, one person? Well, now you've got your wish. You died in your prime, and he'll never forget you for the rest of his life. The pomegranate tree in the courtyard had already borne small fruits. I walked over and touched the rough bark, talking to myself. Should bear quite a few this year. Lehe followed me in, wanting to speak but hesitating. I turned to look at her smiling with curved brows and eyes. Go tell the small kitchen, I want sweet osmanthus lotus root for lunch. Add more sugar, make it sweeter. Yes, madam, well he withdrew. I stood under the pomegranate tree, looking up at the dappled light filtering through the gaps in the leaves. So quiet. Much quieter than when Su Yoonhae was around. The officials left before dark. Before leaving, That constable surnamed Zhao glanced at me several more times. I knew what he was thinking. The Marquise's lawful wife, looking gentle, courteous, and frugal. Speaking softly, no matter how you look at her. She doesn't seem like someone who could kill and dump a body. But Su Yunhe's death was suspicious, and I had visited her room before it happened. But where is the evidence? None. There were no footprints of a second person by the lotus pond. Of course not. I wore specially made soft-soled shoes with tread patterns so shallow, they were barely visible, and I carefully swept over everywhere I stepped with a broom. There were no signs of struggle by the pond either. Su Yunhe ate the drugged osmanthus cake, was drowsily supported by me to the pond's edge, and went in with just a gentle push. Where would any struggle come from? As for the drug, it was wild hemp seeds I bought from an herb farmer outside the city. Ground up and mixed into the cake. What doctor in the capital would recognize this? Even if they did, Su Yunhe's stomach now contains nothing but cake and water, long since dissolved perfect. Madam, Lahi came in carrying tea, her hands still trembling slightly. The Marquis has gone to Minister Liu's residence. I took the teacup and blew on the foam. What is he doing at the Liu residence? I heard from the servants in the front courtyard that he is going to discuss a marriage. His voice grew quieter, Miss Liu. It seems, is to become an equal wife. I took a sip of tea, my eyes curved in a smile. Liu Mengli, the precious daughter of Minister Liu, wasn't she? The one who called me a fox spirit a few years ago. She still hasn't married all these years. It is not that no one proposed, but her standards are high. She looked down on ordinary families. Now that Su Yunhe just died, Yuan Chengzi is rushing off to remarry, and to someone like her no less interesting. Laha. I set down the teacup. Do you think Miss Liu would also like the lotus pond after she marries in? Lahahabi's face went pale in an instant. Madam. What is there to be afraid of? I am just asking casually. I got up, walked to the vanity, and sat down looking at myself in the bronze mirror. The person in the mirror had gentle eyes and brows, with lips naturally curved slightly upward. This face carries a hint of a smile even when not smiling. Mother always said my looks were too soft, unable to hold the bearing of a proper wife. Mother also said I wasn't smart enough. I muttered to myself, picking up the comb and slowly brushing my hair. Memories surged up like a tide. When I was 7, father brought back a woman named Yun Yang from Yangzhou. Her waist was slender as a willow. Her eyes held spring waters, and she spoke in that soft Wu dialect that made your bones go weak. Mother cried in her room the whole night. When she noticed me peeking through the door crack, she held me and said, Nian R, your father is unfaithful. Who knows? He might even have some bastard siblings born later just to disgust us. Does mother mean she doesn't want to see them? Mother shook her head while wiping her tears. No, mother is just heartbroken. I nodded, half understanding. 3 days later, father took Yunyang horseback riding in the countryside. The horse suddenly spooked while crossing a stream. Father fell off and happened to hit his head on a rock by the stream. Though his life was saved, the doctor said he'd injured a vital spot, and probably couldn't have any more children. Mother cried her eyes out when she went to visit him. Father lay in bed, his face ashen as death. After mother came back, she pulled me into the room and shut the door, staring at me hard. Nianer, tell mother the truth. Your father's horse. The horse was tired. I looked up, saying earnestly, I saw it panting from running, so I fed it some herbs to perk it up. What herbs? Picked from the back mountain, the kind that makes little rabbits hop really high. I gestured. Father said concubine Yu is light, told the horse to run faster, so I wanted to help out. Mother's face went from white to green, then from green back to white. She opened her mouth several times but said nothing in the end, just held me while trembling all over. That night I heard her chanting sutras in a low voice in the Buddhist hall, chanted the whole night. 12 years old. The flower viewing banquet at attendant Liu's residence. Lu Mengli wore a cloud mist brocade dress, surrounded by a group of young ladies. I wore a half-worn lotus pink skirt, quietly sitting in the corner eating pastries. She somehow noticed me, walked over and looked me up and down, then sneered. "Oh my. Isn't this the wooden miss from the Shen family? You dare come to the banquet dressed like this?" People nearby burst into mocking laughter. I swallowed the osmanthus cake in my mouth, wiped my hands and looked up at her. "Miss Liu looks really beautiful today," I said sincerely, like a Huadun on stage. The surroundings fell silent instantly. Liu Mengli's face turned completely red. Everyone knew she hated being compared to an actress, thinking it was lowly. "What did you say? Say it again." Liu Mengli's voice was shrill and piercing. "I said you look beautiful." I blinked. "Is that wrong? You dare call me an actress? Aren't actresses beautiful?" I tilted my head, "But I think they're quite beautiful." Liu Mengli was so angry she trembled all over, pointing at my nose. "Shen Nian, you are vulgar and uncouth. You are practically a vixen." A vixen? I was stunned. After the banquet ended, I tugged at the maid's sleeve and asked, "Chuntao, what is a vixen?" Chuntao stammered. It is, a woman who is really good at seducing men." Seducing men, I frowned. "But I don't know how to do that." "That is not what it means, Aya. It is just an insult. Insulting me by calling me a fox." "More or less." I lowered my head, lost in thought. The next morning, screams erupted at the entrance of the Liu residence. When the gatekeeper opened the door, he saw a bloody dead chicken lying on the steps. The chicken's neck had been wrung, blood smeared all over the ground. Liu Mengli was immediately frightened sick. I brought tonics to visit her, sat by her bedside, and said sincerely, "Miss Liu, I heard foxes love eating chickens, so I specially picked the fattest one. If you like it, I have more at my place." Liu Mengli looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. From then on, rumors gradually spread throughout the capital. They said the legitimate daughter of the Shen family was beautiful. But unfortunately not quite right in the head. She only understood what people said literally. And her actions were quite strange too. Mother became even more worried. She would always hold my hand and say, "Nian, what will become of you? How many times has mother taught you, when listening to people speak, you must hear the meaning between the lines? What is the meaning between the lines?" Mother was at a loss for words. She couldn't explain it clearly herself. Because she lived her whole life in those twists and turns, surviving by guessing, enduring, and compromising. She wanted to teach me but couldn't make me understand. So I decided to learn on my own. In the bronze mirror, the corners of my lips slowly curved upward. "Ulha!" I turned around. "Let's visit the Shen residence tomorrow. I miss my mother." "But the Marquis, isn't the Marquis at the Liu residence?" I smiled even more gently. "We're going back to my family. No need to report to him." Elachi lowered her head and acknowledged. I gazed at the deepening night outside the window, my fingers lightly tapping on the vanity. "Liu Mengli, after all these years, you still haven't learned your lesson. If you want to take what is mine, you'd better be prepared to face the consequences." The day I returned to the Shen residence, the sky was heavily overcast. The carriage wheels rolled over the stone-paved road, making dull rumbling sounds. Li Ha sat across from me, occasionally lifting the curtain to peek outside before letting it drop again, looking like she wanted to say something but kept holding back. "Just say what you want to say." I closed my eyes to rest. "Madam," Lu heard her voice, "the Marquis came back last night in a terrible rage and smashed half the study. His eyes were all red when he left this morning, and the way he looked at people was terrifying. Su Yunhei is gone. It is only natural for him to be heartbroken. But the Liu family. What about the Liu family?" I opened my eyes and looked at her with a beaming smile. "Miss Liu is going to marry in. That is a good thing. The residence is too quiet. One more person will liven things up." Alfia stopped talking. She had followed me for so many years. She knew what lay beneath this innocent appearance of mine. The carriage stopped at the gate of the Shen residence. When I lifted the curtain to get off, I happened to see Nanny Chen, who served my mother. Standing at the gate looking out, seeing me, she hurried over to greet me. But her eyes reddened first. Miss. No, the Marchioness has returned. Nanny. I gave a slight curtsy. Where is my mother? In the Buddhist hall. She has been talking about you since early morning. Nanny Chen led me inside, lowering her voice. The master is home too, in the study right now, said he is waiting for you to come talk. I nodded, but didn't rush to the study, heading straight for the Buddhist hall. The Shen residence's courtyard was much smaller than the Yongchang Marquise's manor, but I was familiar with every blade of grass and tree. Passing through the moon gate, I heard the wooden fish in the Buddhist hall tapping rhythmically, the sound making one's heart restless. I stood at the doorway and waited for a while. The wooden fish finally stopped. Come in. Mother's voice came from inside, sounding somewhat weary. I pushed the door and went in. The Buddhist hall was wreathed in incense smoke. Mother was kneeling on a prayer cushion in plain-colored clothes, still holding prayer beads in her hand. She didn't turn around, just gazing at the Guanyin statue before her. Mother, I called out. Only then did Mother slowly turn around. She wasn't even 40 this year. Yet there was already white hair at her temples, and the fine lines at the corners of her eyes were deep traces left from years of furrowing her brows. Nianer, she beckoned me over, took my hand and looked me up and down. You've gotten thinner. The Marquise's residence feeds me well. I haven't gotten thinner. I sat down beside her. Mother stared into my eyes, her lips moved slightly. But in the end she just sighed. I've heard all about what happened at the Lotus Pond. Was it really an accident? I tilted my head. The authorities said she slipped and fell into the water. I am asking you whether it was an accident. Mother's grip tightened. I looked at her. In her eyes there was worry, fear, and a hint of complex emotion I couldn't read. She had always looked at me this way since I was little, like looking at a child who might cause trouble at any moment, yet also like looking at a monster she couldn't understand. Mother, I gently withdrew my hand and adjusted my sleeve cuffs. Don't you always say that Nianer is slow-witted and can't understand things? Why are you asking me such a difficult question now? Mother choked on her words. After a long while, she spoke again, her voice so low it was almost inaudible. The Marquis is going to propose to the Liu family. It is Vice Minister Liu's legitimate daughter Liu Mengli. I know. What do you plan to do? Mother stared at me. Miss Liu is nothing like Su Yunhei. She is a proper legitimate daughter of an official's family, spoiled in temperament, and with her maiden family backing her. If she enters this household, she'll be an equal wife, on the same level as me. I cut in, my tone calm. Mother wants to say I should yield and endure, right? Mother didn't speak, but her eyes had already given the answer. I smiled. Does Mother still remember what Liu Mengli called me? Mother's expression changed slightly. A vulgar and shameless fox spirit. I repeated word by word. At the flower viewing banquet when I was 12, in front of all the noble ladies of the capital. Later she even spread rumors everywhere, saying the legitimate daughter of the Shen family was a fool, and whoever married her would be cursed with bad luck. That is all in the past now. Mother looked away. Mother can forget the past, but I can't. I stood up and walked to the window. You always taught me to endure, taught me to read between the lines. But I've tried. I simply can't understand. I turned to look at Mother's pale face. So I can only go by what I do understand. What do you understand? Mother's voice trembled. I understand that Liu Mengli insulted me, so I should return the favor. I smiled with my brows and eyes curved. I understand that she wants to steal my husband, so I should either step aside or make sure she doesn't succeed. Nianer, don't do anything foolish. The Liu family isn't like Su Yunha, who has no backing. Minister Liu holds real power in the court. Even the Marquis has to depend on him to some extent. If you make a move against Liu Mengli. Mother, I cut her off. Have you forgotten? I am now the Marchioness of Yongchang. Mother froze. Su Yunhei is dead, and the authorities couldn't find anything. If Liu Mengli also had an accident, what could the Liu family do? I slowly walked back in front of her, report to the officials. But where is the evidence? The Marchioness of Yongchang harming people. Who would believe that a dim-witted fool could kill two women of considerable status one after another? Mother stepped back half a step and leaned against the altar table, only managing not to fall by bracing her hands on the surface. You. Since when did you start? Since when did I learn all this? I finished her sentence for her, probably after father fell from his horse. I saw mother hiding in her room crying, father lying in bed sighing, and concubine you being sent off to the estate. That is when I thought, so solving problems is this simple. That is different, mother said urgently. That was an accident. Yes, it was an accident, I nodded. Everything is an accident. Father falling from his horse was an accident. The dead chicken at the Liu residence's gate was an accident. Su Yunhee falling into the water was an accident. If anything happens to Lu Mengli in the future, it will also be an accident. I patted the non-existent dust off my skirt. Don't worry, mother. Nian Er is very well behaved now and won't cause any trouble. With that, I turned and walked out. Nianer, mother called from behind, your father wants to see you. I know. I pulled open the door, and the sunlight was blinding. Nanny Chen was still standing guard outside the door. Seeing me come out, she opened her mouth as if to say something, but in the end just lowered her head and curtsied. In the study, father was writing. He has aged quite a bit these past few years. The leg injury from falling off a horse years ago left him walking with a limp, and his back had become slightly hunched. Seeing me enter, he set down his brush and looked at me with a complicated expression. Father. I bowed properly, sit. I sat down as told. We sat facing each other, father and daughter, yet had nothing to say for the moment. A sheet of rice paper lay spread on the desk, with the words "Calm the Mind" written on it. The ink hadn't fully dried yet. The Lotus Pond incident, father finally spoke. Was it really an accident? This question again. I smiled. Father cares about this too. You are my daughter, father stared at me. If anything happens to the Yongchang Marquis Manor, the Shen family won't escape involvement either. So that is how it is. Rest assured, father, I picked up the teacup and blew on it gently. Nothing will happen to the Marquis Manor. Even if something does, it won't implicate the Shen family. Father's brows furrowed even tighter. You know about Miss Liu entering the manor, right? I know. How do you plan to handle it? I set down the teacup and looked at him seriously. How does father wish me to handle it? He probably wanted to say I should endure, to consider the bigger picture, to maintain the dignity of both families. But those words facing these eyes of mine, he might not be able to say them. 3 years ago when he forced me to marry into the Marquis Manor, I looked at him just like this. Back then he said, the Yongchang Marquis Manor is of high status, Yan Chengxi is young and promising, marrying there means a life of comfort. I asked him back then, Father, what does enjoying fortune mean? It means fine clothes and rich food, being respected by others. I asked again, then what if you are not respected by others? He couldn't answer, but now I understand. Enjoying fortune means you can also make others not enjoy it. Vice Minister Liu and I serve in the same court. Father looked away. Don't make things too ugly. I understand. I stood up. If father has nothing else, I'll head back first. There is still a pile of things to handle at the Marquise's manor. Wait. Father stopped me, took out a small box from the drawer. Take this. I took it and opened it. Inside was a stack of silver notes and some jewelry. Your mother wanted you to have this. Father turned his face away. She said it is not easy for you at the Marquise's manor. Having some money on hand makes things easier. My fingertips holding the box felt a bit cold. Mother lived her whole life in father's shadow, swallowing her grievances, bending over backwards to keep the peace. What she gave me was probably her private savings she'd scraped together over many years. But she never asked me if I wanted this kind of life. Please thank mother for me. I put away the box and curtsied. Your daughter takes her leave. When I walked out of the study, rain began to drizzle. I stood under the corridor watching the fine rain like needles, densely piercing the blue stone slabs in the courtyard. The cluster of roses in the corner that Mother loved most had been beaten askew, petals scattered all over the ground. Lu Hu came over with an umbrella. "Madam, shall we return to the Marquis's manor?" "Yes." When the carriage drove away from the Shen residence, I lifted the curtain and took one last look. Mother's thin figure stood inside the main gate. The curtain of rain blurred her face, making her expression impossible to see. I let down the curtain and leaned back inside the carriage. "Here. When we get back, find that bolt of cloud sunset brocade from my storeroom," I said with my eyes closed. "Miss Liu is going to marry in, so we should prepare a congratulatory gift." Li Hia's voice grew tense. "Madam, that bolt of cloud sunset brocade is the most precious one in your dowry. Back then, what Miss Liu wore at the flower viewing banquet was made of this very fabric." "I know." I curled my lips. "That is exactly why it is fitting to give it to her, Liu Mengli. Don't you love cloud sunset brocade the most? Don't you want to one-up me the most? I'll give it to you. I'll give you everything. I just wonder if you'll live long enough to wear it." When we returned to the Yongchang Marquis Manor, the rain grew heavier. The carriage stopped outside the second gate, and Elie held an umbrella as she helped me down. Just as I steadied myself, I heard the sound of porcelain shattering from the front courtyard, mixed with Yuan Chengxi's furious cursing. "Useless, all of you are useless." I paused my steps slightly and gave Elie Shi a look. Instead of taking the main path, we went around to the corridor and hid behind a pillar to look at the front hall. The hall was in complete disarray. The floor was covered with shattered celadon pieces. Tea splashed everywhere. Yuan Chengxi stood in the hall, his face livid with rage. Several stewards stood with their heads bowed, not daring to breathe. "Investigated for 3 days, and all you found was an accidental drowning." Yuan Chengxi kicked over the stool beside him. "Not even a ghost shadow by the lotus pond. Did Su Yunhei sleepwalk into it from a nightmare in the middle of the night?" The steward trembled in fear. Marquis, Constable Zhao from the Yamen, said there were indeed no traces of a second person by the pond, and there were no external injuries on the concubine's body. Perhaps it really was. Yuan Chengxi spun around abruptly. "You are going to say it was an accident too?" The steward dropped to his knees with a thud. I watched quietly, the sound of rain masking my breathing. The damp, cold wind swept through the corridor. Hao was trembling slightly behind me. Whether from cold or fear, I couldn't tell. "Marquise." A soft, delicate voice rang out. Liu Mengli stepped out from behind the screen. Her face was lightly powdered, her glancing eyes full of allure. "Please calm your anger, Marquis. It is not worth ruining your health over." She walked over to Yuan Chengxi's side so naturally, reaching out to smooth his lapels. Yuan Chengxi's expression softened slightly as he held her hand. "Why did you come out?" I heard the commotion and was worried. Liu Mengli looked up at him, tears glistening in her eyes. "I am saddened by what happened to Sister Yunhei too, but what is done. No matter how angry you are, Marquis, she won't come back." As she spoke, tears actually fell from her eyes. Yuan Chengxi pulled her into his arms tenderly. "You are still the most considerate." I quietly laughed behind the corridor pillar. After a few years apart, Liu Mengli's tricks have improved. Before, she only knew how to curse people with sharp and mean words, but now she has learned to play weak and act considerate. Makes sense. If you want to steal someone's husband, you gotta make some progress. It is just, Liu Mengli leaned against Yuan Chengxi's chest. "This concubine is a bit scared. Sister Yunhao was perfectly fine. How could she just—" "My lord, could there be something unclean in the manor?" Yuan Chengxi's body stiffened. "What nonsense are you spouting?" he scolded her verbally. But his hands held Liu Mengli even tighter. "This concubine isn't talking nonsense." Liu Mengli raised her head, eyes misty with tears. "This concubine heard that some manors have heavy yin energy and easily attract evil spirits. Sister Yoonhae was so young when she passed, and her death was so strange. She didn't continue, but the meaning was obvious. She was hinting that Soo Yoonhae's death was not an accident, but the work of evil spirits. As for what the evil spirit is, who has been in the Marquise's manor for 3 years without bearing children? Who saw Soo Yoonhae before her death? Who has a reputation in the capital for being foolish and acts strangely? Isn't that just me, Shen Nian? LVA's hand grabbed my sleeve, trembling badly. I gently patted the back of her hand and turned to leave. Back in my own courtyard, I had someone heat up water and took a nice, comfortable bath. Steam rose up. I leaned against the edge of the tub and rested with my eyes closed. The marriage from 3 years ago surfaced before my eyes again. When the big red bridal sedan was carried into the Yongchang Marquis Manor, onlookers crowded the streets. Everyone said Miss Shen was so fortunate to marry into the Marquis Manor as the legal wife. In the wedding hall, Yuan Chengxi wore bright red wedding attire. But his face was cold as ice. His movements were stiff during the bowing ceremony. On our wedding night, he came in half drunk, stood by the bed staring at me for a while, then sneered. Shen Nian, right? Your father really spared no expense to climb up to the Marquis Manor. I had already lifted my own bridal veil and was eating the red dates and longan on the table. I swallowed the date in my mouth. Father said I came here to enjoy the good life. Yuan Chengxi scoffed. Enjoy the good life. Fine, then go ahead and enjoy it. That night he slept on the couch in the outer room. The next day was the tea ceremony. The old madam of the Marquis Manor held my hand and sighed. Nian, Chengxi has a stubborn temper, please bear with him. Don't worry, grandmother. Nianer will take good care of her husband. I meant those words. So every day I woke up early to greet Yan Chengxi at his courtyard. Personally prepared breakfast, tidied his study, washed clothes and folded bedding. Although servants could do all these things, I always felt I should do them myself. Yuan Chengxi was impatient at first but later got used to it. Then later he simply ignored me altogether. 3 months later, I caught him fooling around with a maidservant in his study. The maidservant was so frightened she knelt on the ground begging for mercy. But Yuan Chengxi leaned back in his chair, looking at me with a half smile. What does madam have objections? Number as long as my husband is happy. I transferred that maidservant to my own courtyard, gave her some money, and let her go home to get married. When Yuan Chengxi found out, his face was sour for the entire day. Another half-year passed, and he started frequenting brothels, mostly not coming home at night. The old madam was so angry she fell ill. I attended to her illness day and night. She held my hand and said, Nian, you've been wronged. I am not wronged. As long as my husband is happy. I truly wasn't wronged. Because in that half year, I had already figured out everything about the Marquis Manor. I knew the accountant was embezzling. I knew the kitchen purchaser was taking kickbacks. Knew the stable hand was secretly selling fodder. I also knew Yuan Chengxi's page boy was covering up those shady dealings for him. I even knew how many hidden doors the manor had. How many secret passages. How deep the lotus pond was, where the soil was loosest on the back hill, which wall of the storeroom was thinnest. I even knew Yuan Chengxi was keeping a mistress in the west of the city. That woman was already pregnant. But I said nothing. I just quietly observed, silently recorded. Learning all the rules of this manor. The ones on the surface and the ones in the shadows. The water had gotten a bit cold. I got up, dried myself off, and changed into clean undergarments. Ellie He came in to tidy up. When she saw the old scars on my shoulders and back, her eyes dimmed for a moment. Those were from bumps and scrapes when I was little. Mother always said I was clumsy. I'd walk into door frames, miss steps going downstairs, and even spill soup all over myself just carrying a bowl. But that wasn't true. I was just using my body to test the boundaries of this world. Only by hitting the door frame did I learn how hard doors are. Missing a step taught me how much it hurts to fall. Getting burned by hot soup taught me what temperature can hurt people. These experiences all proved useful later. For example, I know how slippery the moss by the lotus pond is, at what angle someone would fall after stepping on it, and which stone their head would hit. Madam, Let has said softly. Word came from the Marquise's courtyard, asking you to go have dinner together. Miss Liu will be there too. I combed my hair in front of the mirror, the bronze mirror reflecting my docile face. All right. Find me a plain outfit. Su Yun had just passed away. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to dress too brightly. Dinner was set in the flower hall of Yuan Chengxi's courtyard. Lu Mengli was already there when I arrived. She had changed into a light pink dress, with only a white jade hairpin in her bun, looking much more subdued. But the smugness between her brows couldn't be hidden. Yuan Chengxi sat in the main seat, not even lifting his eyelids when I came in. This concubine greets the Marquise. I curtsied, then turned to Lu Mengli. Miss Liu. Lu Mengli rose to return the greeting, her posture impeccably poised. Sister is here, please sit. She bit down especially hard on the word sister. I sat down as told. On the table were 8 dishes and a soup, all Yuan Chengxi's favorites. Lu Mengli personally served him food, picking up dishes while saying, My lord, try this steamed sea bass. I specially instructed the kitchen to make it. The heat is just right. Yuan Chengxi took a bite, not bad. Lu Mengli smiled, her gaze sweeping past me. Sister, do eat too, don't be shy. I picked up a piece of greens and ate slowly. Silence hung over the table, with only the soft sounds of bowls and chopsticks clinking. Halfway through the meal, Yuan Chengxi suddenly spoke. The Liu family has agreed to the marriage. She'll enter the household on the 8th of next month. I set down my chopsticks and looked up. Congratulations to the Marquis. Congratulations to Miss Liu. By custom, an equal wife is still a wife. She should enter through the main gate and bow to heaven, earth, and the ancestors. Yuan Chengxi stared at me. You have no objections, right? Of course not. Miss Liu is a legitimate daughter of an official family. She deserves a grand wedding. Lu Mengli's smile grew even brighter. Also, Yuan Chengxi continued, after Mengli enters the household, the two of you will manage the household affairs together. I blinked. Is the Marquis saying the account books and keys will be split half with Miss Liu? What, you are not willing? Of course I am. It just so happens that this concubine is slow-witted and always makes mistakes with the accounts. Having little sister Liu to help couldn't be better. Lu Mengli pretended to decline. How could that work? Sister has managed the household for years, with such rich experience. It is fine, I'll teach you. I looked at her, my eyes sincere. The account books aren't hard, just record clearly who embezzled how much, who took kickbacks, who secretly moved things out. Just get these down and you are set. Liu Mengli's smile stiffened slightly. Yuan Chengxi furrowed his brows. What did you say? Talking about the account books. I looked completely innocent. Last year the kitchen procurement embezzled 300 taels. The stables secretly sold fodder for 150 taels. And then there is steward Zhang from the front courtyard, who stuffed his nephew in here to draw a ghost salary. 5 taels a month, been doing it for 2 years now. I counted them out one by one. My voice wasn't loud, but with each sentence, Liu Mengli's face grew a shade paler. Yuan Chengxi's expression grew increasingly grim. You knew all this, of course. I nodded. It is all recorded in the account books. Would the Marquis like to see them? Then why didn't you say so earlier? The Marquis never asked. Yuan Chengxi stared at me fixedly, his eyes looking at me as if I were a stranger. Lu Mengli hurriedly stood up to smooth things over. Sister is truly meticulous, remembering all these small matters so clearly. From now on this concubine will learn from sister, and will surely manage the Marquise's manor properly. Sure, then starting tomorrow, Sister Liu can come to my courtyard to look at the account books. It just so happens that Sister Yunhe's funeral affairs need to be handled too. A pile of expenses to sort out. At the mention of Su Yunhe, the atmosphere in the hall instantly turned cold. Liu Mengli forced a smile. Of course. This meal was eaten with everyone harboring their own schemes. On the way back to the courtyard that evening, Li Ti carried a lantern ahead to light the path. Madam, Are you really going to show the account books to Miss Liu? Yes. I looked up at the moon. Not only will I show her, I'll show her everything. Let her see clearly just how many parasites are gnawing at this golden mountain called the Marquis Manor. But what? Doesn't Liu Mengli want the authority to manage the household? I'll give it to her. I want to see if she has the ability to keep these wolves and tigers in check. Moonlight spilled onto the bluestone path, casting a cold white glow. I walked slowly, my footsteps light. 3 years, Yuan Chengxi. You finally brought the person you wanted most into the manor. Then let her have a good look at what this Marquis Manor of yours really looks like. Hope she doesn't get scared. Su Yunhe's funeral was handled carelessly. A thin coffin, a few monks chanting sutras for half a day, then carried out of the manor and buried. Yuan Chengxi personally attended the burial. When he returned, his eyes were red and swollen, and he shut himself in the study for the whole day. Liu Mengli, however, was all smiles. Since that evening meal, she came to my courtyard every day to learn household management. Today checking account books. Tomorrow inspecting the storeroom, the day after counting servants. She put on quite the show. Sister. She flipped through the thick stack of account books, her brow furrowing deeper and deeper. Why are these procurement expenses 30% higher than market prices? I was embroidering a handkerchief by the window. Hearing this, I looked up and thought about it seriously. Mama Li said the Marquise's manor uses only the best, so it is normal for things to be more expensive. The best. Liu Mengli sneered coldly. The pork from the other day. I had a maid ask around at the market. It is only 15 wen per jin, yet the accounts recorded 25 wen. Where did that 10 wen difference go into a dog's belly? Ulaha stood behind me, her face turning pale upon hearing this. I set down my embroidery frame and walked over to Liu Mengli's side, leaning in to look at the account book. It is true, there is a 10 wen difference. Did sister not know about this? Liu Mengli tilted her head and looked at me with probing eyes. I knew. Mama Li said the extra money is a hardship fee for the purchasing servants. Hardship fee. Liu Mengli's voice suddenly shot up. Just from pork alone. They embezzle 5 taels of silver a month. That is 60 taels a year, and this is only the pork. Rice, flour, grain, oil, fruits, vegetables, fabric, spices. Sister. Even if the Marquise's manor had mountains of gold and silver, it couldn't withstand being squandered like this. The more she spoke, the angrier she got. She slapped the account book shut. These parasites must be cleared out. I blinked. How do we clear them out? Replace them, Liu Mengli said decisively. Replace the kitchen purchasers, investigate the accounting office people too, and throw out anyone with problems. Oh, then will Sister Liu go tell the Marquis? Liu Mengli choked on her words. Of course she didn't dare. She had just entered the manor and hadn't even found her footing yet. Was she going to go after the manor's long-serving staff? Yuan Chengxi would be the first to refuse. Which of these stewards doesn't have deeply entangled connections, where pulling one thread moves the whole body? Elder sister is the principal wife. This matter should be brought up by elder sister. I did bring it up. I looked completely innocent. I told the Marquis last year. And the Marquis said water 2 clear breeds, no fish, told me not to meddle. Liu Mengli's face alternated between red and white. She probably didn't expect that Yuan Chengxi knew about these things. Not only knew but tacitly allowed it. I sat back in front of the embroidery frame and picked up the needle and thread again. Sister Liu shouldn't take it too seriously either. Madame Li is a cousin of the Marquise's wet nurse. The accountant is a distant relative of the old Madame's maiden family. The stable manager is the father of the servant boy who has been with the Marquise since childhood. They're all family. Let them skim a little. The Marquise's mansion has money anyway. I spoke lightly, but Liu Mengli's face turned ashen. She finally realized that this Marquise's mansion was not the resplendent palace she had imagined, but a densely woven web. Everyone was entangled in it, unable to move. And she, As the newly arrived equal wife, wanting to tear a hole in this web was simply a fool's dream. Elder sister is right. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. This concubine was too impatient. No rush. No rush, I said with a beaming smile. Sister Liu can learn slowly, the days ahead are still long. The days ahead were indeed still long. On the 7th day of Liu Mengli learning household management, the first accident occurred. That day she went to the storeroom to inventory the porcelain, directing 2 rough work servants to move a blue and white porcelain vase half as tall as a person. One of the servants' hands slipped, and the vase fell to the ground and shattered. Liu Mengli flew into a rage on the spot, demanding to dock 3 months' wages from the 2 servants. One of the servants, surnamed Sunday, had been in the Marquise's household for decades. She immediately stiffened her neck and talked back. What great authority Madame Liu has. When this old servant was serving in the Marquise's household, you hadn't even been born yet. You? Liu Mengli trembled with anger. How dare you talk back to me? This old servant wouldn't dare. Granny Sunday said sarcastically. This vase was acquired when the old Marquis was still alive, worth 300 taels of silver. If Madame Liu wants to punish me, this old servant accepts it. It is just that the matter of the broken vase needs to be reported to the Marquis and the old madam. Liu Mengli's expression changed. 300 taels was no small sum. She had just entered the household and already damaged such a valuable item. If word got out, the old madam would be the first to blame her for not knowing how to manage a household. I watched from the side and spoke up at the right moment. Granny Sunday, don't worry. What is broken, as long as no one got hurt, that is what matters. As for the wages, just dock 1 month as a token gesture. Sister Liu is only thinking of the household's good. Granny Sunday glanced at me and said nothing more. But the dissatisfaction in her eyes was plain to see. Liu Mengli bit her lip and in the end could only accept it. That evening, Yuan Chengxi came to my courtyard to dine. Since Liu Mengli entered the household, he only came to me on the 1st and 15th of each month, just enough to preserve the dignity of the principal wife. At the dinner table, he suddenly said, Mengli was wronged at the storeroom today. My hand paused while ladling soup for him. Is the Marquis referring to the porcelain vase incident? Old Madame Sunday is throwing her weight around because of her seniority. She needs to be put in her place. Yan Chengxi took the soup bowl, his tone flat. In all these years you've been managing the household. You've been too lenient with the servants. I lowered my head and shoveled rice into my mouth. Madame Sunday is getting old. It is normal for her hands and feet to be less nimble. If she is old, she should go retire. Why is she still occupying a position? Yuan Chengxi glanced at me. Mengli is right. These old servants in the manor should be replaced with new ones. I didn't respond. Only after Yuan Chengxi left did Elati say quietly, Madam, the Marquis is trying to establish authority for Lady Liu. I know. I wiped my mouth. Let him. But, do you think Liu Mengli can actually hold that authority? He was stunned for a moment. She thinks by replacing a few old servants, she can have the Marquis manor in her grasp. But she doesn't know that everyone in this manor is connected by flesh and bone. Old Madame Sunday's son works in the front courtyard. Her daughter is a second-rank maid in the old Madame's courtyard, and her son-in-law is the steward of the estate outside the city. Touch one of them, and how many people will be affected? I gazed at the heavy darkness outside the window. If Yuan Chengxi wants to establish authority for her, then let him. I want to see just how long he can keep backing her up. Sure enough, the next day Liu Mengli started making her move. First, old Madame Sunday was transferred to the laundry room. From a respectable job managing the storeroom to scrubbing clothes in cold water all day. Granny Sunday made a scene on the spot, saying she'd go find the old madam to settle things. Next was Mama Li, the kitchen buyer. She was suspended after discrepancies were found in her accounts, replaced by an attendant Liu Mengli brought from the Liu family. Then 2 stewards from the front courtyard were given paddle beatings for neglecting Madame Liu. In just 3 short days, the entire Marquis' household was in chaos. The old madam finally couldn't sit still any longer. On the morning of the 4th day, Chuya, the head maid from the old madam's courtyard, came to summon me, saying the old madam wanted to see me. I changed into plain clothes and went. As soon as I entered, I saw the old madam sitting on the daybed with a stern face, while Liu Mengli stood to the side with red eyes, as if she'd just been crying. Nianer is here. The old madam beckoned me over. Sit. I sat down as told. Liu Mengli also moved to sit, but the old madam swept a cold glance at her. You stand. Liu Mengli froze. I hear you've been stirring up such trouble these past few days that the household has had no peace. The old madam looked at Liu Mengli, her tone cold and hard. Grandmother. Liu Mengli's tears fell again. This concubine only wanted to put the household affairs in order. Those servants were bullying me for being new, and this concubine had no choice. We're organizing household affairs. The old madam sneered coldly. Granny Sunday has been in this manner for 30 years without a single mistake. Mama Lee came from my maiden family, and she has always been reliable. But you come in and want to replace them all. What? The servants of our Marquis Manor aren't good enough for you. This concubine wouldn't dare. Liu Mengli dropped to her knees with a thud. This concubine only noticed problems with the accounts and wanted to share the Marquis's burdens. Share his burdens. The old madam slapped the table with a bang. I think you are just causing trouble. Nian Er has managed the household for 3 years, keeping everything in perfect order. You've only been here a few days and already turned everything upside down. What? You think Nian Er isn't managing well enough and needs your guidance? Those words were harsh. Liu Mengli's face turned deathly pale as she kowtowed repeatedly. Please forgive me, grandmother. This concubine had no such intention, but the old madam didn't look at her. Instead, she turned to me. Nian Er, tell me, should people like Granny Sunday and Mama Lee be replaced? I lowered my head and thought for a moment. Mama Sunday has managed the storeroom for many years without any mishaps. The vegetables Mama Lee purchases, even the Marquis says they're fresh. They're all old hands in the manor, and they know how to conduct themselves. The old madam's expression softened slightly. Did you hear that? Even Nianer says they're good. Liu Mengli knelt on the ground, her nails digging into her palms. Go back now. The old madam waved her hand dismissively. Household affairs will still be managed by Nianer for the time being. You just married in, so get familiar with things first. Don't be so eager to meddle. Liu Mengli bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. In the end, she could only murmur a soft yes and withdrew. After she left, the old madam sighed and took my hand. Nianer, you've been wronged. I am not wronged. That child Chengxi, the old madam's eyes were complicated, has been bewitched by that Liu woman, rest assured. As long as I am here, you will forever be the legitimate wife of this Marquis Manor. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. How much longer could the old madam protect me? Coming out of the old madam's courtyard, I ran into Liu Mengli under the corridor. She stood there waiting for me, eyes red and swollen. But the timidity from earlier was gone from her face, replaced only by venomous resentment. Such clever tricks, sister. Just a few words, and all my efforts these past days were wasted. What is Sister Liu talking about? I don't understand. Drop the act, Liu Mengli stepped closer, lowering her voice. You know exactly how Su Yunhei died. I blinked. Sister Yunhei slipped and fell into the water. The authorities have already closed the case. You can fool others, but not me. Liu Mengli stared into my eyes. Shen Nian, let me tell you, the Marquis only has me in his heart. This position of Marchioness will be mine sooner or later. If you know what is good for you, step aside yourself and save some face, otherwise. Otherwise what? Liu Mengli smiled, that smile incomparably sinister. Otherwise, Su Yunhei's fate will serve as your warning. I gazed at her quietly for a moment. Then I smiled too. Sister Liu, do you know? Before Su Yunhei died, she said almost the same thing to me. Liu Mengli's smile froze on her face. She said the Marquis only wanted her alone and asked me to step aside. I agreed. Then she went to the lotus pond to keep the mandarin ducks in the water company. Lu Mengli's face instantly lost all color. I stepped forward, almost pressing against her ear, and spoke in a voice only the two of us could hear. Lu Mengli, you say you want to be the Marquis's wife. I'll grant your wish. After saying that, I stepped back and turned to leave. Even after walking far away, I could still feel that cold gaze on my back, like a venomous snake. Lu Mengli stayed quiet for half a month. During this half-month, she no longer meddled in household affairs, staying in her own courtyard every day, occasionally going to Yuan Chengxi's study to keep him company, or paying respects to the old madam morning and evening, acting very docile and well-behaved. The servants in the manor breathed a sigh of relief, but gossiped behind closed doors. Has Madame Liu admitted defeat? Doesn't look like it to me. She is plotting something. Don't you dare say it. Haven't you seen enough of that one's methods? That one they spoke of was naturally me. Su Yunhe is death, though the authorities ruled it an accident. Who in the manor believed that? The lotus pond was only waist deep. How could a young healthy person just drown like that? And she just happened to die right after I sent her pastries. But no one dared to say it outright. After Granny Sunday was transferred to the laundry room, she fell ill the very next day. They said she slipped while doing laundry and threw out her back, and would have to stay in bed for a few months. Her son also mysteriously lost his job working in the front courtyard. He was sent to do hard labor at the manor outside the city. Mama Li was suspended from her duties, replaced by a Wang surnamed dowry servant from the Liu family. That woman was diligent enough, but somehow the vegetables she bought were always not fresh, and the meat was often from the day before. Yuan Chengxi threw down his chopsticks after eating just once. Mama Wang was immediately removed, and Mama Li came back. Supposedly she even received a pair of silver bracelets as a reward from the old madam, saying she had been wronged. Now even a fool could see what was going on. This Marquis manor. It looked like Yuan Chengxi was in charge, but the one whose words actually mattered was the old madam. And the one the old madam protected was me. Lu Mengli naturally saw this clearly too. So she changed her strategy. This day, a small banquet was set up in the old madam's courtyard, saying it was for the family to gather now that autumn had turned cool. When I went with Elati, Lu Mengli had already arrived. She was sitting beside the old madam, intimately holding the old madam's arm while chatting. Grandmother, this is a forehead band I embroidered myself, using the finest silk, stuffed with chrysanthemum and cassia seeds inside. Wearing it in autumn brightens the eyes and calms the mind. She presented a finely embroidered forehead band. The old madam took it and looked it over, nodding with a smile. Mengli is so thoughtful. I stepped forward and curtsied. The old madam waved for me to sit on the other side. Nian is here too. Sit down quickly. Mengli made chrysanthemum cakes. Try some. She said they're your favorite. Sure enough, there was a plate of chrysanthemum cakes on the table, golden and soft, with a fragrant aroma. I picked up a piece and took a bite. Delicious. Liu Mengli glanced at me, her smile radiant, as long as sister likes them. This concubine remembered sister's tastes and deliberately used less sugar, afraid sister would find them too rich. Sister Liu has such a good memory. The old madam watched us, getting along harmoniously. A gratified expression appearing on her face. That is more like it. Family should be harmonious. Where is Chengxi? Why hasn't he come yet? Just as her words fell, Yuan Chengxi came in. He wore a dark green robe today, which made his complexion look somewhat pale. There were faint dark circles under his eyes as if he hadn't slept well. Grandmother. He bowed, then glanced at me and Liu Mengli before sitting down on the old madam's other side. The small banquet began, and the maids filed in to serve the dishes. During the meal, Liu Mengli kept finding topics to chat with the old madam about. From clothes and jewelry to health and dietary remedies, her words as sweet as honey. The old madam was charmed by her and beamed with joy. Halfway through the meal, Liu Mengli suddenly said, Grandmother, this concubine has a thought, but I am not sure if I should say it or not. Go ahead. This concubine noticed the garden on the east side of the mansion has been abandoned for quite a while. Such a pity. Lu Mengli said softly. This concubine was thinking. Could we tidy up the garden, plant some flowers and plants, and build a small pavilion? Grandmother could go there to sit, enjoy the flowers and have some tea. Surely better than being cooped up indoors. The old madam's eyes lit up. What a wonderful idea. That garden was built when the old marquis was still alive. It fell into disrepair later, and I've long wanted to fix it up, but never got around to it. If grandmother agrees, this concubine is willing to handle this matter. It won't cost the mansion much either. This concubine will contribute some from her dowry, as a show of filial piety to grandmother. Those words were beautifully put. She both pleased the old madam and showed off her wealth, generosity, and filial devotion. The old madam was indeed delighted. It is the thought that counts. You don't need to pay, the mansion will cover it. Then this concubine will shamelessly take charge of this for grandmother. Lu Mengli smiled radiantly, her gaze sweeping toward me. Elder sister won't mind, will she? I was picking up a slice of lotus root and looked up blankly when I heard this. Mind what? Mind this concubine handling the garden matter. Lu Mengli feigned unease. After all, matters in the mansion have always been decided by elder sister. I don't mind at all. If Sister Liu wants to do it, go ahead. Just let me know if you need any help. The smile on Lu Mengli's face deepened. Elder sister is so kind. Yuan Chengxi also showed a rare smile. How thoughtful of you, Mengli. As long as grandmother is happy. The meal was enjoyed in a harmonious and cheerful atmosphere. On the way back to the courtyard after the banquet, L'Elvier said in a low voice. Madam, Lady Liu is trying to steal your spotlight. Such a big matter as renovating the garden, she has taken it over. If she does it well, the old madam will value her more, and the marquis will favor her more too. Aren't you worried? Worried about what? I smiled. Renovating the garden is a good thing. Wolfa wanted to speak but held back. I knew what she was thinking, using the garden renovation as a pretext. Liu Mengli could legitimately interfere with household affairs, direct workers, and withdraw silver. She was trying to claw away the household management rights bit by bit. But I didn't care, because I knew that East Garden couldn't be renovated soon. Liu Mengli got the construction started in a flurry. She personally went to inspect East Garden, drew up plans, selected plants and flowers, and found craftsmen. Silver flowed out like water. On the day construction began, she specially invited the old madam to come see. Watching the bustling scene, the old madam kept praising her capability. Yuan Chengxi also went. In front of the servants, he put his arm around Lu Mengli's shoulders and said, with Mengli handling things, I am at ease. Lu Mengli nestled in his arms, smiling like a cat that had stolen some fish. But on the third day of construction, the first incident occurred. A craftsman fell from a ladder and broke his leg. Lu Mengli hurriedly had him sent to a clinic and compensated him with 10 taels of silver before the matter was finally suppressed. The fifth day, the rope broke while unloading the delivered Taihu stones, injuring 2 servants. Lu Mengli had to pay compensation again. Day 7. While digging the pond, they unearthed something unclean. It was a few bone fragments, but no one knew whether they were human or animal bones. The craftsman complained about the bad omen and refused to continue working. Lu Mengli was so angry her face turned pale. She had to invite monks to perform rituals and pay extra before barely managing to keep the workers. Day 10. An autumn rain came and the foundation of the half-built pavilion collapsed. Liu Mengli stood before the ruins, trembling all over. When the old madam heard the news, she only said lightly, Mengli is still young, inexperienced. She never mentioned going to see the garden again. Yuan Chengxi also started getting impatient. How can building a garden cause so much trouble? If you can't handle it, let Shen Nian take over. Lu Mengli gritted her teeth and said, this concubine can handle it. But she couldn't, because those accidents weren't accidents at all. The craftsman's ladder. I had someone tamper with it. The rope was old and worn. I had someone switch it out. The bone fragments were buried by me in advance. As for the collapsed foundation, the autumn rain was just a trigger. The real reason was that the lime for the foundation had too much sand mixed in. I did all this covertly, leaving no traces behind. Even if they investigated, they'd only find careless craftsmen, shoddy materials and bad weather. Liu Mengli had grievances she couldn't voice. The garden renovation dragged on for a month, and they spent quite a lot of silver just to barely finish digging the pond. There wasn't even a shadow of the pavilion yet. The old madam stopped giving any more silver. Liu Mengli had to put in more than half of her own dowry, and it pained her so much she was twitching. She didn't dare ask the old madam for money again, so she could only turn to Yuan Chengxi. Yuan Chengxi comforted her at first, but after too many times he got annoyed too. Can you handle this or not? Just stop the renovation, my lord, Liu Mengli said with teary eyes. I just wanted to show filial piety to grandmother. Showing filial piety isn't done like this. Yuan Chengxi flung his sleeves and left. Liu Mengli stood in the empty garden, looking at the half-dug pond, the half-built pavilion foundation, bricks and timber scattered all over the ground. She suddenly squatted down, hugged her knees, and started crying. I happened to pass by with Let. Sister Liu, what is wrong? I walked over and asked with concern. Liu Mengli lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. She looked at me, and for the first time fear appeared in her eyes. You, her voice was hoarse, you did this, didn't you? Did what? I looked completely clueless. These accidents, all this bad luck. Liu Mengli suddenly stood up, pointing at the mess all over the garden. You are behind all of this. I blinked and said earnestly, Sister Liu, you can't just say things like that. The craftsmen all said it is because the garden has bad feng shui and there are evil spirits. Evil spirit? What evil spirit? You are the evil spirit. I tilted my head. Sister Liu, have you forgotten, when Sister Yunhei died? You said there was an evil spirit in the manor. Now that something's happened in the garden, how can it not be an evil spirit? I suspect this evil spirit follows you wherever you go. Liu Mengli's face turned deathly pale in an instant. You, what exactly do you want? I stepped forward, closing in on her, my voice pressed very low. Liu Mengli, when you called me a vixen before, did you ever think about today? Did you think that marrying into the Marquise's manor would let you trample me underfoot? Let me tell you what Su Yunhei couldn't do. You can't do either. I reached out and smoothed the disheveled hair at her temples. The movement was gentle, like true sisters. I'd advise you not to continue renovating this garden. If you keep going, the next one to have an accident might not be a craftsman. After saying this, I withdrew my hand, turned and left. Even after walking far away, I could still hear the suppressed sobbing behind me. Luva followed beside me, her voice trembling. Madam, if you provoke her like this, will she act like a cornered dog jumping over the wall? I finished her sentence and smiled. I want her to jump. But, LV, do you know how a cat catches a mouse? A cat won't kill the mouse in one bite, it plays with it. Plays until the mouse is exhausted. Plays until the mouse thinks it can escape, and then bites through its neck. The autumn wind blew past. Fallen leaves in the garden spiraled down. I reached out and caught a piece weathered and yellow. It crumbled at the slightest pinch. Liu Mengli is that mouse now. Let her struggle, let her think she still has a chance. Then, when she is feeling most smug, I opened my hand, and the crushed leaves slipped through the gaps between my fingers. Send her to meet Su Yunhei. The matter of the East Garden fizzled out. Liu Mengli never brought up renovating the garden again. That mess just sat there, like an ugly scar embedded in the east side of the Marquis Manor. The servants in the manor all took detours when passing by, whispering behind backs that the place was unclean. Liu Mengli herself fell ill too. They said she caught a cold and couldn't get out of bed. Yuan Chengxi visited twice. The first time he was still gentle and soft-spoken, but the second time he was getting impatient. Liu Mengli had a bad temper while sick, throwing medicine bowls and cursing at the maids. Gone was all her usual gentleness and sweetness. My lord, she held Yuan Chengzi's hand, eyes brimming with tears. This concubine feels awful inside. That garden, this concubine truly wanted to show filial piety to grandmother. Enough. Yuan Chengzi pulled his hand back. Just focus on getting better. Stop thinking about all that nonsense. After he left, Liu Mengli sat in a daze on the bed for a long while, then suddenly sat up. Go, call Mama Li from the kitchen over here. Mama Li came quickly. She stood by the bed with her head lowered, her expression unreadable. Mama Li Liu Mengli's voice was weak, yet carried a fierce edge. I know you are the old madam's person, looking down on me, the newcomer. This old servant wouldn't dare. Mama Li's tone was respectful yet neither servile nor overbearing. Wouldn't dare. Liu Mengli sneered. When I was renovating the garden, those materials you were the one handling the purchases, right? That batch of lime was half mixed with sand. Did you think I didn't know? Mama Li's body stiffened. I could expose this to the old madam, Liu Mengli said leisurely. Or I could pretend I don't know. It all depends on whether Mama Li knows what is good for her. The room fell silent for a moment. What does Madame Liu want? Mama Li finally spoke. Very simple, Liu Mengli smiled. I need you to help me with something. What is it? Liu Mengli beckoned, gesturing for Mama Li to lean in close, and whispered a few words. Mama Li's expression shifted, but in the end, she still nodded. This old servant understands. 3 days later, I fell ill too. They said I ate something unclean, vomiting and diarrhea. Week all over. LVDA was so anxious she was running around in circles and called for a doctor. The doctor took my pulse and said it was disharmony of the spleen and stomach, infected with damp evil, and prescribed several doses of medicine. After the old madam heard about it, she sent someone with some tonics and instructed me to rest well. Yuan Chengzi also came to take a look, but stood at the doorway without coming in. How come you are sick too? I leaned against the headboard, face pale, probably caught a chill from the autumn cold. 2 people in the manor fell sick at once. How unlucky. He left right after saying that. He was so angry her eyes turned red. How can the Marquis say such things? He is right, it is unlucky. Leahy came in carrying the freshly brewed medicine. I sniffed it but didn't drink. Madam, drink it while it is hot. Leave it for now. Let it cool a bit. He didn't understand why, but still placed the medicine bowl on the small table by the bed. I closed my eyes to rest, only opening them after Lett left, staring at that bowl of pitch-black medicine. The medicine was fine. At least it looked fine on the surface. The doctor wrote the prescription. A maid prepared the herbs. Brewed it herself. But I knew someone would add something to the medicine. Not poison. That would be too obvious. Maybe a laxative, maybe something to make 1 week all over, or maybe something else. In short, something to make me even sicker. As long as I was too sick to get out of bed, unable to manage affairs. Then Liu Mengli could take over the household duties under the guise of tending to the sick, all proper and justified. By the time I recovered, the household authority would have already changed hands. Same old trick. Su Yunhee had used it. Now Liu Mengli was using it again. Do they really think I, Shenyan, am that dim-witted, falling for the same trick twice? I threw off the covers, got out of bed, and walked to the vanity, taking out a small porcelain bottle from deep inside the drawer. Inside the bottle was medicinal powder I had prepared long ago. The same wild hemp seed powder I used on Su Yunhee last time, ground even finer. I scooped out a little with my fingernail. Just as I was about to put it in, footsteps came from outside the door. I quickly pulled my hand back, spilling a bit of the powder onto the table. I immediately wiped it off with my hand and sat back on the bed. The one who came in was Liu Mengli. She wore a light green dress today. With light makeup on her face, she looked quite well, not at all like someone who had been sick. Chungsing followed behind her, carrying a tray with a bowl of medicine on it. Sister. Liu Mengli walked to the bedside, smiling gently. I heard sister was ill, so I specially brewed some medicine to bring over. This is a recipe I brought from my maiden home. It is the best for replenishing vitality and nourishing the body. Would sister like to try some? I looked at her and smiled too. Has Sister Liu recovered? Thanks to sister's blessings, I am much better. Liu Mengli gestured for Chongqing to hand over the medicine bowl. Sister, drink it while it is still hot. I have medicine here, just freshly brewed. Sister's medicine is for treating wind cold, not for the spleen and stomach. Liu Mengli picked up the medicine bowl, scooped out a spoonful, and brought it to my lips. Sister, try this one. If it is no good, I simply won't bring it again. The spoon almost touched my lips. The medicine smelled strong, mixed with a strange, sweet fragrance. I stared at Liu Mengli. Her gaze was gentle and her lips curved into a smile, but her knuckles gripping the spoon were slightly pale. She was nervous. She was afraid I wouldn't drink it. Sister Liu, I said softly, you drink a sip first. Liu Mengli's smile stiffened. What does sister mean by this? Could it be you suspect me of poisoning the medicine? It is not suspicion, I said seriously. It is concern. In case this medicine doesn't suit my condition, you try it first. If something goes wrong, I can call someone to save you. Sister. Liu Mengli's eyes reddened. I came with nothing but good intentions. Yet sister thinks of me like this. As she spoke, her tears began to fall. I took the medicine bowl and placed it on the small table by the bedside, side by side with my own bowl of medicine. I appreciate Sister Liu's kindness. I'll drink the medicine later. You've just recovered. Don't stand too long, go back and rest. Liu Mengli refused to leave. Sister should drink it now. I won't be at ease unless I watch sister drink it. Must I drink it? You must drink it. I looked into her eyes, looked for a long time, then smiled. All right. I picked up the bowl of medicine she brought and raised it to my lips. Liu Mengli's eyes lit up, staring intently at my hand. I tilted my head back, but I didn't drink. I only made a swallowing motion. Then I put down the bowl. The medicine inside had decreased a little. All right, I wiped the corner of my mouth. I've drunk it. Liu Mengli frowned. Sister only took one sip. The medicine is bitter. I'll drink it slowly. I lay back on the bed and closed my eyes. Go back, sister. I am tired. Liu Mengli wanted to say something more, but seeing my dismissive attitude, she could only grit her teeth and stand up. Then rest well, sister. This humble one will come again tomorrow. She left. When the footsteps faded away, I opened my eyes and sat up, picked up her bowl of medicine, walked to the window, and poured all the medicine into the flower bed outside. The dark brown medicinal liquid quickly seeped into the soil. I also poured out my own bowl of medicine. Half a shichen later, I started vomiting and having diarrhea. He was so scared her face turned pale, and she was about to go fetch a doctor. I held her back. No need. But Madam Yu, I am fine. I was faking it. He was stunned. I smiled at her. Go tell the Marquis and the old madam that I am seriously ill and can't get out of bed. As for the household affairs, let Madam Liu handle them for now. He didn't understand why. But she did as told. Once the news spread, Liu Mengli came at the first opportunity. She stood by the bed, looking at my weak appearance, unable to stop the corners of her mouth from curling up, then forcibly suppressed it. How did sister suddenly become so seriously ill? She pretended to wipe her tears. Don't worry, sister. This humble one will take care of the household affairs for you. Thank you for your trouble. Sister, it is no trouble. Liu Mengli squeezed my hand, gripping tightly, as if flaunting her victory. Sister, get well soon. She walked away with light steps. I heard her say to Chongqing outside the door. Go tell the stewards of each courtyard. From today on, all matters big and small in the mansion are to be reported to me. Yes, I didn't sit up until they had gone far, then said to Ella Tay, go call Nanny Li. Nanny Li came quickly. She stood by the bed with her head lowered, not daring to look at me. Nanny Li, my voice was calm. What benefits did Madame Liu give you? Nanny Lai dropped to her knees with a thud. Madam, this old servant was forced. Speak. Madame Liu said if this old servant helped her, she would still let this old servant manage the kitchen procurement, with a 30% raise in monthly wages. Nanny Li's voice trembled. If I didn't help, she would expose the matter of mixing sand into the lime. This old servant had no choice. So you added laxatives to my medicine. And Nanny Li didn't dare speak. What about Madame Liu's bowl of medicine? What was added in it? This old servant doesn't know, Nanny Li kowtowed repeatedly. That medicine was brewed by Madame Liu herself. She wouldn't let this old servant touch it. But this old servant could smell it. There was the scent of datura flower in it. Datura flower. A small amount relieves pain, more causes hallucinations, and even more would be fatal. Lu Mengli really wants me dead. Nanny Li, I looked at the person trembling on the ground. I'll give you one chance. Hope ignited in Nanny Li's eyes. From now on, whatever Madame Liu asks you to do, you do it. But after you've done it, come tell me. Madam, can you do that? Mama Li hesitated for a moment, then kowtowed heavily. Yes. This old servant will definitely do it. Go. Mama Li withdrew. Had closed the door, and when she walked back to the bedside, her eyes were rimmed with red. Madam, why didn't you expose her? If you had really drunk that bowl of medicine, she wouldn't have let me actually drink it. She just wanted me to be seriously ill so she could take over the household management. The datura flowers were probably just a precaution. In case I drank it, they would make me delirious and unable to speak. I lay back on the bed, gazing at the bed curtains. Let her manage it. Managing a household isn't such an easy thing. The very next day after Lu Mengli took over, the manor fell into chaos. First, the monthly wages were delayed by 3 days, and the servants were full of complaints. Then there was a problem with procuring fabric for winter clothes. Everything purchased was substandard goods that shrank after one wash. The charcoal supply to the old madam's courtyard was insufficient. The old madam was so cold she kept coughing, and she flew into a great rage. Lu Mengli was overwhelmed, running around putting out fires everywhere. Only then did she realize that managing a household wasn't as simple as giving orders. Every steward had their own agenda, every bit of silver had its destination, and every relationship had to be considered. The slightest carelessness would cause trouble. And she, a co-wife who had just entered the household with an unstable footing, couldn't hold the situation together at all. On the 7th day, something went wrong in the kitchen. The pork that was purchased wasn't fresh, and several servants got diarrhea after eating it. Lu Mengli wanted to punish Mama Li, but Mama Li talked back on the spot. Madame Liu, you were the one who told me to buy this pork. You said it was cheap and could save money for the household. Now that something's gone wrong, why are you blaming this old servant? Lu Mengli was trembling with anger. I told you to buy cheap, not spoiled. You get what you pay for, doesn't Madame Liu know that? Mama Li sneered. The two of them started arguing in the kitchen, causing a huge commotion. In the end, they disturbed the old madam, who summoned them both and punished each equally. Mama Li was docked a month's wages. Lu Mengli was confined for 3 days and forbidden from managing household affairs. When Lu Mengli came out of the old madam's courtyard, her face was ashen. She never expected that the household authority she had schemed so hard to seize would be lost so quickly. And what she expected even less was that my illness suddenly got better. The day I recovered, I went to pay my respects to the old madam. The old madam held my hand and said lovingly, Nianer, you've just recovered. Don't tire yourself out. You'll still be in charge of household matters. Mengli is young and doesn't understand things. Don't hold it against her. Grandmother, rest assured, Nianer understands. Coming out of the old madam's courtyard, I happened to run into Lu Mengli. She stood under the corridor, looking at me with venomous eyes. Such clever tactics, sister. She said through gritted teeth. You faked an illness to let me take over, then secretly sabotaged me to make me look bad. Now everything's fine, and the household authority is back in your hands. I looked at her and smiled faintly. Sister Liu, you are wrong. The household authority has never left my hands. You think by replacing a few stewards and allocating some silver, you can hold the Marquis Manor in your grasp. I slowly walked toward her, my voice soft. Do you have any idea how many people in this manor are mine? How many eyes are watching for me? Everything you do, every word you say. I know it all. I stopped in front of her and looked into her eyes. You want to renovate the garden. I won't let you finish. You want to manage the household. I won't let you succeed. Lu Mengli, this manor is my territory. As long as you are here, you play by my rules. After saying that, I turned and left. After a few steps, I looked back and added one more thing. I dumped that bowl of medicine you sent. Next time you want to poison someone, remember to add sugar. It was too bitter. I really couldn't drink it. Lu Mengli stood there, her face pale as a ghost. She was like a basin of charcoal doused with water, no sparks on the surface, but still smoldering inside. She no longer meddled in household affairs, no longer sought the old madam's company. She just stayed in her own courtyard each day, occasionally visiting Yan Chengxi's study, always quiet and still. The servants in the manor all said Lady Liu had finally learned her place. Only I knew she was biding her time. October 15th, a full moon night. The old madam went to a temple outside the city to pray for blessings and would stay there for 3 days. Yuan Chengxi was invited by colleagues to drink and hadn't returned even late into the night. The manor was quiet and still. Only the sound of the night watchman striking his wooden clapper, each beat as if striking upon one's heart. I was reading in my room, while Lepiki was embroidering a handkerchief beside me. Madam. Lahi suddenly looked up. Chengxing from Lady Liu's courtyard just came with a message, saying Lady Liu invites Madam to admire the moon by the lotus pond. I put down the book and smiled. It had finally come. Prepare a lantern. Madam, it is so late, and that lotus pond. Concubine Su just died not long ago. It is unlucky. Lady Liu calling you there at this hour. She definitely has bad intentions. I know, that is exactly why I must go. Laha wanted to persuade me further, but I waved my hand, stay in the courtyard. If I don't return after an hour, go to the front courtyard to find the Marquis. Just say I am admiring the moon with Sister Liu at the lotus pond, and fearing he might worry. Ask him to come fetch me. This servant will remember. I carried a lantern and headed to the lotus pond alone. The night wind was cool, making the candle inside the lantern flicker on and off. The lotus pond shimmered faintly under the moonlight, its surface calm and waveless, like a huge black mirror. Lu Mengli was already there. She wore a plain white dress, with a cloak of the same color draped over her, standing by the pond. Hearing footsteps, she turned around with a gentle smile on her face. Sister has come. Sister Liu. I walked toward her and stopped 3 steps away. It is so late. What made you think of admiring the moon? It is a pity to enjoy it alone. Liu Mengli looked up at the sky. Look, sister. Tonight's moon is as round as a bronze mirror. I followed her gaze and looked up. The moon was indeed very round and very bright. Bright enough to see every leaf by the pond, every stone. And the faint scratch Su Yunhee left on the stone when she fell into the water. It was almost covered by moss now. Sister, Liu Mengli suddenly spoke. Her voice soft. Did Sister Yunhee really slip and fall into the water? Here it comes. I turned to look at her and said calmly, that is what the authorities said. Do you believe it, sister? Of course. I nodded. We should naturally believe what the authorities say. Liu Mengli laughed, and that laughter sounded particularly jarring in the quiet night. Sister, you really are. As naive as ever. She took 2 steps forward, approaching the edge of the pond, and looked down at the water. This pond doesn't look deep. How did someone drown in it? I didn't respond. I've asked around. The night Su Yunhee died, Sister brought her pastries. The pastries were made by Sister's own hands and delivered by Sister personally. After eating the pastries, Su Yunhee dismissed all the maids, saying she wanted some time alone. She turned around to look at me, the moonlight casting a deathly pale glow on her face. And then she slipped and fell into the water. I met her gaze, my expression unchanged. What are you trying to say, Sister Liu? I wanted to say. Liu Mengli took a step forward, getting closer to me, close enough that I could almost smell the rich incense on her. Elder sister has such clever tricks. Killing without spilling blood and leaving no trace for the authorities to find. Sister Liu, watch your words. You shouldn't say such things carelessly. Carelessly? Liu Mengli sneered coldly. Shen Nian, it is just the two of us here. What are you still pretending for? She suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. I know you did it. She stared into my eyes, enunciating every word. Su Yunhee was in your way. So you killed her. Now I am in your way too. Are you going to kill me as well? I didn't struggle free. Just looked at her. Sister Liu. What way of mine are you blocking? The Marquise's heart. Liu Mengli's voice rose sharply. The Marquis only has me in his heart, as long as I am here. You'll forever be nothing but a legitimate wife in name only. Shen Nian, are you content with that? It has been 3 years, how many times has the Marquis touched you? Does he have you in his heart at all? The more she spoke, the more agitated she became, her grip growing stronger and stronger, her nails nearly digging into my flesh. I lowered my head to look at her hand, then slowly raised my eyes. Liu Mengli, you are hurting me. My voice was very calm, so calm that Liu Mengli was stunned for a moment. She instinctively loosened her grip a little but didn't let go. Liu Mengli, I continued, my voice soft, as if speaking of something trivial. Do you know? My mother always said I was dim-witted, that I couldn't understand what people say. Liu Mengli furrowed her brows, not understanding why I suddenly said this. So when I listen to people, I only take their words at face value. You said the Marquis only has you in his heart. I believed it. You said I was in your way. I believed that too. I paused for a moment, looking at her and smiled. So Su Yunhee died. Liu Mengli's pupils suddenly contracted. Now, you are saying I am in your way again. I took a step forward, forcing her back half a step, her heels almost touching the moss by the pool's edge. Tell me, Liu Mengli, what should I do? Liu Mengli's face went deathly pale, her lips trembling. You wouldn't dare. What wouldn't I dare? My smile looked somewhat eerie under the moonlight. After all, Su Yunhee slipped and fell into the water. And you could slip and fall too. The lotus pond isn't deep, not enough to drown anyone, but if your head hit a rock and you passed out then fell into the water. That is a different story. I spoke lightly, as if discussing tonight's moonlight. Liu Mengli completely panicked. She violently shook off my hand, retreating again and again, but forgot the lotus pond was right behind her. Her foot slipped as she stepped on the moss, her whole body tilting backward. I grabbed her wrist. She hung at the pool's edge, half her body already leaning out, only kept from falling by my grip. The water's surface was less than a foot from her face. She could see her own reflection in the water. Help, help me. Her voice trembled, her other hand flailing wildly, trying to grab onto something. I didn't pull her up, nor did I let go. I just held on like that, watching her terrified face. Liu Mengli, you just said that the Marquis only has you in his heart. Yes, yes. Then what if you died too? How long would the Marquis remember you? A month? A year? Or like Su Yunhee, eager to marry someone new after just half a month? Liu Mengli's tears fell, mixing into the pond water. Sister. Sister, I was wrong. I shouldn't have fought with you. I shouldn't have. She spoke incoherently. Pull me up. I'll do whatever you say. I won't fight anymore. I really won't fight anymore. I quietly watched her for a long time. Then I pulled her up. Liu Mengli collapsed on the ground, most of her body soaked. She hugged her knees, trembling, looking at me as if I were a demon. I squatted down to meet her eyes. Liu Mengli, listen carefully. The position of the Marquise's wife is mine. The Marquise's heart, you can take it if you want. But I am the one who calls the shots in this manner. If you behave yourself as Madame Liu, I can tolerate you. But if you scheme again, I reached out and smoothed the wet hair on her forehead. Remember what the water of this lotus pond tastes like. Lu Mengli shuddered all over, tears surging even harder, yet she didn't dare cry out loud. I stood up and patted the non-existent dust off my hands. The night's getting cold. Sister Liu should go back and rest early. With that, I turned and left. After a few steps, Lu Mengli's suppressed sobbing came from behind me. I didn't look back. A terrified mouse wouldn't dare to bite recklessly. Hopefully she has really learned her lesson. Carrying the lantern back to the courtyard, Ella T was anxiously waiting at the door, and breathed a sigh of relief when she saw me return. "Madam, are you all right?" "I am fine." I handed the lantern to her. Sister Liu slipped and almost fell into the pond. I pulled her back. Eb widened her eyes. "She didn't do anything to you, did she?" "She wouldn't dare." I walked into the room and poured a cup of hot tea to warm my hands. At least not now. "Then in the future. We'll talk about that later." I took a sip of tea and looked out the window. The moon had tilted westward. Dawn was approaching. Lu Mengli would probably have nightmares tonight. Good. People need to fear something to know their limits. Suddenly, I recalled what Lu Mengli had said earlier. She said Yuan Chengxi only had her in his heart. How laughable. How could someone like Yuan Chengxi possibly have a heart? All he has is possessiveness, vanity, and novelty. Today it is you. Tomorrow it could be someone else. That night, Lu Mengli fell ill again. Supposedly she caught a cold and was too sick to get out of bed. Chengxing went to the kitchen every day to fetch medicine, walking with her head lowered and avoiding anyone she saw, like someone with a guilty conscience. Yuan Chengsui went to see her once. When he came back, he said, "Mengli looks awful, and she speaks without energy." She must have been frightened. He said this while having dinner in my room. The old madam had returned from the temple. The whole family had lunch at the old madam's courtyard. After the meal, Yuan Chengsui rarely accompanied me back to my quarters. The old madam had specifically instructed us as husband and wife to be more intimate. Frightened, I ladled soup for him. Sister Liu is timid. Perhaps she had a nightmare. Yuan Chengsui took the soup bowl and glanced at me with a complicated look. That night. What did you and Mengli talk about by the lotus pond? I looked up blankly and said nothing much. Just admiring the moon and saying how lovely it was. Then Sister Liu slipped and almost fell into the pond. I pulled her back, and she got frightened. That is all. That is all. Sister Liu probably remembered what happened to Sister Yunhei and got scared. My lord, you should go keep her company more. I spoke so sincerely that Yuan Chengsui didn't know how to respond. He silently finished the soup and put down the bowl. Nianer, you've been married into this family for 3 years now. 3 years, he murmured as if talking to himself. Why do I feel like I've never truly understood you? I lowered my head and kept eating without responding. What does it matter whether he understands me or not? How many people in this world truly understand each other? My father doesn't understand why my mother always cries. My mother doesn't understand why I am not sharp. Yuan Chengxi doesn't understand why I could endure for 3 years. I don't understand them either. Why do they always have to make simple things so complicated? Keep what you like. Get rid of what you don't. Remove what gets in the way. How simple. My lord, I put down my chopsticks and looked up at him. If you are worried about Sister Liu, just go see her. I am fine here. Yuan Chengxi looked at me for a long while, then finally stood up. All right. He left. He came in to clear the dishes and said softly, "The Lord was supposed to stay here tonight. It is the same wherever he stays." I got up and walked to the window. Lu Mengli is probably trembling at the sight of him now. Why? Because she knows her backer is completely unreliable. That night at the lotus pond, she thought I would push her in. But I pulled her back. She knows I can kill her, and I can save her. Her life is in my hands. That feeling is worse than death for her. Lu Shi seemed to half understand. I didn't explain further. Some things don't need to be understood. You just need to know the outcome. Lu Mengli ended up being sick for half a month. During this half-month, the manor was calm and peaceful. The old madam relied on me more and more, leaving all household affairs to me. She even gave me a key to her own private treasury. Yuan Chengxi was also much more polite to me, no longer as indifferent as before. He would occasionally come to my courtyard to sit for a bit and chat. Although it is all just trivial small talk, it is better than nothing. The servants are even more obedient. No one dares to comply in public while defying in private anymore. Everything is going well. Su Yunhei's case was finally closed after all. Constable Zhao came to the manor personally to report back, and in front of the old madam, Yuan Chengxi. And me he spoke without a single flaw. The scene investigation found no signs of struggle, the body had no external injuries and no drug residue in the stomach. The lotus pond is 4 chi deep, chest height for an average person standing. But if drunk or dizzy, slipping and drowning is indeed possible. It is ruled as accidental drowning from slipping into the water. The old madam let out a sigh of relief and murmured a prayer to Buddha. Yuan Chengxi's expression was ugly, but he said nothing. I stood up and gave Constable Zhao a curtsy. You've worked hard. Constable Zhao. Constable Zhao glanced at me, his gaze deepening, and cupped his hands. Madam is too kind. It is just my duty. After seeing Constable Zhao off, the old madam held my hand and said, "This is good now, the case is closed, and the manor can finally have some peace." "Yes, grandmother, rest assured." But Yuan Chengxi suddenly spoke up. "Grandmother, I think we should just fill in that lotus pond." The old madam was taken aback. "Fill it in, why?" "It is unlucky." Yuan Chengxi's voice was low. "Yunhei died there. And Mengli almost fell in too. That pond is cursed." The old madam hesitated and looked at me. "Nianar, what do you think?" "What the Marquis says makes sense. However, that lotus pond was built by the late Marquis back in the day, and it would be a pity to fill it in. Why not invite eminent monks to perform a ritual to guide the departed souls to rest? Then erect a stone guardian by the pond to ward off evil spirits. That should do it." The old madam nodded repeatedly. "That is a good idea. It preserves our dignity and puts everyone's minds at ease." Yuan Chengxi wanted to say something more, but after glancing at me, he ultimately kept his mouth shut. The ritual was set for 3 days later. They invited eminent monks from Longquan Temple outside the city. 7 or 8 of them came, set up their formation by the lotus pond, chanting sutras and prayers, banging and clanging away for an entire day. All the servants in the manor went to watch the spectacle. I went too, standing far away outside the crowd, quietly watching. The monks wore their kasayas with eyes closed, chanting sutras, incense smoke swirling around them. The pond water shimmered under the sunlight. More than half the lotus leaves had withered, with a few remaining leaves floating on the surface. It did look rather desolate. Amitabha. An old monk walked up to me, palms pressed together. "Benefactress, the resentment of the departed soul in the pond has not yet dissipated. You must perform more good deeds and accumulate merit to resolve it." I looked at him and asked seriously, "Master, why hasn't the departed soul's resentment dissipated? Did they die unjustly?" The old monk didn't expect me to ask this and paused before saying, "All beings suffer, and attachments are hard to let go. Whether it was unjust or not no longer matters. What matters is that the living find peace and the dead rest in peace." I nodded. Master is right. Peace of mind. But how can I find peace of mind? When Su Yunhei died, I didn't feel uneasy. When Liu Mengli was scared out of her wits, I didn't feel uneasy either. The only time I felt uneasy was when I was 7, seeing father lying in bed after falling off his horse. Back then I asked mother, "Will father die?" "No, but he won't be able to have children anymore." I asked again, "What about concubine Yu?" Mother's eyes dimmed. "She was sent to the manor." I didn't understand back then, but now I do. Concubine Yu was father's favorite, but she fell out of favor after he fell from the horse. Because she brought bad luck to her husband. Because she caused father to lose his ability to have heirs. But wasn't that an accident? It was I who fed the horse stimulating herbs. The horse got spooked, and that is why father fell. So concubine Yu's tragedy was caused by me. I felt uneasy about it for a while, but later I figured it out. If concubine Yu hadn't entered our household, mother wouldn't have cried. If father hadn't taken a concubine, I wouldn't have fed the horse that grass. If everything in this world followed the rules, there wouldn't be accidents. So the fault isn't mine. It is the rules. In this mansion, in this capital city, in this world, in those convoluted, hypocritical, cutthroat rules. I don't understand those rules. So I play by my own rules. My rules are simple. Whoever makes me suffer, I make them suffer more. After the ritual was done, a blue stone tablet was erected by the lotus pond, with 3 large characters carved on it, Shigan Dang. It is said to ward off evil and drive away ghosts, protecting the peace of the area. The servants dared to approach the lotus pond after that, even daring to wash clothes and gossip by the poolside. This Shigan Dang really works. Even the pond water doesn't feel eerie anymore. Of course, it was blessed by a high monk. What a pity about concubine Su so young. As they talked, they suddenly saw me walking over and immediately fell silent and lowered their heads to work. I walked to the stone tablet and reached out to touch it. The stone was ice cold, the carvings deep. Madam Hebi has said quietly, "It is windy here, let's go back." I turned and left, walked a few steps, then looked back again. The stone tablet stood by the pond like a silent guardian deity. But who was it guarding, the living or the dead? The peace of this marquise's mansion or something else? I withdrew my gaze and continued walking forward. When I returned to the courtyard, Nanny Lee was already waiting. "Madam," she handed over a ledger. "These are the expenses from Madame Liu's courtyard this month, 30% more than last month." This old servant found it suspicious and made a special note of it. I took the booklet and flipped through it. Medicinal herbs, tonics, fabrics, jewelry, all sorts of items, each one recorded, but the prices were clearly inflated. Sister Liu is ill. It is only right to spend more on her. But madam, Nanny lowered her voice. This old servant went to the pharmacy to ask, and the medicines Madame Liu uses aren't worth that much at all. And those tonics, half of them never even made it to Madame Liu's courtyard. I looked up. Where did they go? Nanny Lee hesitated for a moment before saying, "This old servant saw Chung Sing secretly take them out and pawned them. Liu Mengli is short on money." Right. She spent most of her dowry on renovating the garden, and lost quite a bit of silver while managing the household. She probably doesn't have much on hand now. But why would she need to pawn things? Didn't Yuan Chengzi give her money to use? Does the Marquis know? Probably not. Madame Liu cares about her face. She wouldn't ask the Marquise. I closed the booklet and handed it back to Nanny Lee. Just keep note of it. Don't bother with it. But, Nanny Lee, do your own job well. As for other matters, don't pry. Nanny Lee shuddered and quickly lowered her head. This old servant understands. She withdrew. I gazed out the window, where the autumn wind was sweeping across the courtyard, stirring up fallen leaves. Winter is coming soon. I wonder if Liu Mengli's frail body can make it through this winter. Then I smiled softly. No evidence found, conscience clear. Winter came swift and fierce. After the first snow, the capital's temperature plummeted, breath turning to frost. The various courtyards of the Marquise's manor had lit their floor heating early, but Liu Mengli's courtyard was always chilly. The charcoal supply was insufficient, and what was sent over was all choking inferior charcoal that filled the room with smoke the moment it was lit. Liu Mengli's coughing got even worse. This cold illness of hers had dragged on for 2 months. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. On good days she could walk around the courtyard. On bad days she could only lie in bed, coughing until her lungs felt torn apart. Yuan Cheng still visited her often at first. Later, seeing her sickly and haggard appearance, he gradually came less. Men, indeed, always like fresh and radiant things. Aunts touched by illness. They find it unlucky. Liu Mengli probably understood this too, so she desperately wanted to get better. She had Chongqing fetch good doctors and get good medicine. But when the medicine was brewed and brought to her, she always refused to drink it. Perhaps it was because of what happened by the lotus pond that night that left her with a shadow over things she put in her mouth. Without taking medicine, the illness healed slowly. With the illness not improving, Yuan Chengxi was even less inclined to come. A vicious cycle, this day. I went to the old madam's courtyard to pay respects, and when I came out, I happened to see Chongqing wiping tears under the corridor. What is wrong? Chongqing saw me, trembled with fright, and hurriedly wiped her tears. And nothing. Sister Liu's illness still hasn't gotten better? I stepped closer. I have some fine chuanbei at my place. I'll have someone send it over later. Madam, Chongqing suddenly knelt down and kowtowed, please save my mistress. If she continues like this, I am afraid she won't make it. I reached out to help her up, stand up and talk. What is wrong with Sister Liu? Chongqing cried. Madam refuses to drink her medicine, saying it is too bitter, but this servant knows she is scared. Ever since that night when she came back from the lotus pond, she has been paranoid, always feeling like someone's trying to harm her. She won't eat properly, can't sleep well. She is wasted away to nothing but skin and bones. I sighed. A troubled mind needs a remedy for the heart. Sister Liu is just scaring herself. But Chongqing hesitated to continue. But what? Chongqing looked around and lowered her voice. But madam, my mistress said. She saw concubine Su's ghost. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. She says she keeps hearing crying from the lotus pond at night, and that concubine Su stands by her bedside, dripping wet all over, asking when she'll come down to keep her company. Chongqing shuddered as she spoke. This servant hasn't seen it, but my mistress describes it so vividly. This servant is scared too. I was silent for a moment. I'll go visit Sister Liu tomorrow. Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam, Chongqing kowtowed repeatedly. The next day I took Ella Pihi to Liu Mengli's courtyard. As soon as I stepped through the door, I smelled a strong medicinal odor mixed with incense, so pungent, it made me want to cough. The windows in the room were tightly shut with all the curtains drawn, dim and gloomy. Liu Mengli lay in bed, covered with a thick quilt, only her pale, gaunt face showing. The moment she saw me, her eyes widened instantly, as if she'd seen a ghost. Why are you here? I heard you were sick, so I came to check on you. I sat down by the bed and reached out to feel her forehead. Liu Mengli suddenly shrank back. Don't touch me. My hand froze in midair, paused for a moment, then withdrew. Sister Liu, I said gently, the illness has muddled your mind. I am not muddled. Liu Mengli stared at me, her gaze both terrified and venomous. It was you. You sent Su Yunha to find me, didn't you? You sent her to take my life. Su Yunha has already been laid to rest. How could she come find you? You are just dreaming about what has been on your mind. It is not a dream. Liu Mengli became agitated, struggling to sit up but falling back weakly. She really came, soaking wet all over, with water weeds tangled in her hair. She said it is cold down there and told me to go down and keep her company. As she spoke, tears streamed down, seeping into the hair at her temples. She said she is so lonely all by herself, that the Marquis has forgotten her. And sister has forgotten her too. She said she hates everyone who took the Marquis away from her. I listened quietly. I waited until she finished before asking softly, so does Sister Liu think Su Yunha blames me or you? Liu Mengli froze. We're both people who stole the Marquis away. But when she was still alive, the one she hated most should have been you, right? After all, it was you who turned her from the only one into just one of many. Liu Mengli's face turned even paler. It wasn't me, I didn't want to steal him, she murmured. It was the Marquis. The Marquis said he only had me in his heart. You actually believe what a man says. Today he says he only has you in his heart. Tomorrow he can say he only has someone else. Sister Liu, you are so smart. How could you be so foolish about this? Liu Mengli looked at me, her gaze gradually growing unfocused. Yeah, how did I just believe him? She smiled bitterly. How did I get myself caught up in this? I stood up and pushed open a window. Cold wind poured in, dispersing the stale air in the room. Sister Liu, I gazed at the gray sky outside the window. You know what? My mother always said I am not too bright, but I think it is you clever people who live the most exhausting lives. Thinking too much, wanting too much, fighting too much. But in the end, what did you actually gain? I turned around and looked at the emaciated figure on the bed. You thought you'd won the Marquise's heart, but where is he now? Off having fun in some woman's arms? Does he even remember you, Lady Liu, who is so sick she is almost dead? Liu Mengli's tears flowed silently. Su Yunhei won the Marquise's favor, but lost her life. What about me? I smiled softly. I didn't ask for anything, didn't fight for anything. But the Marquise's manor is mine. The old madam's trust is mine, the servant's reverence is mine. I walked back to the bedside and leaned down, looking into her eyes. Tell me, which of us three is smarter? Liu Mengli opened her mouth but couldn't speak. Rest well and recover. I straightened up. Winter is still long. You need to stay alive to see what spring looks like. With that, I left with Eli He. After leaving the courtyard, Eli He whispered, Madam, will Madam Liu really see ghosts? When there are ghosts in your heart, you'll naturally see them everywhere. Then will she die? I finished her sentence, looking up at the sky. That depends on her fate. The snow began to fall again. Fine snowflakes drifted down onto my face. Icy cold to the bone. Liu Mengli didn't make it through the winter after all. The 8th day of the 12th lunar month, that day was Buddha's Enlightenment Day. And every household was cooking laba porridge. The Marquise's manor also made a big pot, and the old madam had a portion sent to each courtyard. I personally delivered the portion to Liu Mengli's courtyard. She seemed better that day, able to sit up and even drank half a small bowl of porridge. Chungxing was so happy she kept wiping away tears, saying Madam was finally willing to eat. I sat by her bedside for a while and made small talk. When spring comes and the flowers in the garden bloom, Sister Liu can go out for walks. Liu Mengli nodded with vacant eyes. When I left, I turned back and glanced at her. She was leaning against the headboard, gazing at the snow falling outside the window. Her profile in the dim yellow light actually held a certain tranquility. That was the last image of her. That night, Liu Mengli suddenly fell gravely ill, coughing blood non-stop. By the time the doctor arrived, she had already stopped breathing. Chungxing fainted from crying several times, saying the madam was fine that evening. Then suddenly, Yuan Chengzi came to take a look, standing at the doorway without going in. His expression was very unpleasant. I couldn't tell if it was because another concubine had died, or because he thought it was bad luck. A grand burial. He only said those 2 words before turning and leaving. The old madam chanted scriptures all night. Liu Mengli's funeral was grander than Su Yunhei's, after all. She was the legitimate daughter of an official family and a co-wife. People from the Liu family came, made a scene crying and fussing, demanding to investigate the cause of death. The doctor said Liu Mengli had wind cold entering the lungs. Prolonged illness without recovery, triggering blood consumption. The Liu family didn't believe it, but they couldn't produce any evidence. In the end, it could only be dropped. On the day Liu Mengli's coffin was carried out of the manor, it snowed again. I stood under the corridor, watching the funeral procession gradually fade into the distance. Ellie draped a cloak over me and said softly, Madam, let's go back inside. It is cold out here. I didn't move. I watched for a long time until the procession disappeared around the street corner. I suddenly spoke. Who do you think will be next? Liu He's body trembled, and she didn't dare respond. I smiled and turned back into the room. After Liu Mengli's death, the Marquise's mansion became completely quiet. Yuan Chengxi became taciturn, often sitting alone in the study for an entire day. The old madam also grew much more haggard, spending even longer chanting Buddhist sutras each day. The servants in the mansion were silent as cicadas in winter, walking with their heads lowered, afraid to make the slightest sound. This quiet lasted until the beginning of spring. In March, the peach blossoms bloomed. Yuan Chengxi suddenly said he wanted to take a concubine. This time it was a pleasure house woman named Diwu, said to be exceptional in both beauty and talent, whom Yuan Chengxi had redeemed with a hefty sum. He wanted to give her a commoner status and elevate her to be his concubine. The old madam firmly opposed it. How can a pleasure house woman set foot in the marquise's mansion? Chengxi, have you gone mad? But Yuan Chengxi was set on it. Grandmother, in this life, your grandson just wants someone who truly pleases him. Please grant your grandson this wish. The two had a huge argument. In the end, the old madam fell ill from anger. I went to attend to her illness, staying by her bedside to feed her medicine and wipe her body, caring for her meticulously. The old madam held my hand, tears streaming down her aged face. Nianar, this family is falling apart. Don't worry, grandmother. With Nianar here, this family won't fall apart. The old madam looked at me, her gaze complicated, and in the end just sighed without saying anything more. Yuan Chengxi still ended up bringing Diwu into the mansion. No ceremony was held. A small sedan chair was quietly carried in through the side gate and settled in a secluded courtyard on the west side. I saw that woman once, and she was indeed beautiful. Beautiful in a bewitching way, beautiful in a brazen way. The way she looked at Yuan Chengxi was like looking at prey. The way she looked at me carried undisguised contempt. Another Su Yunhe. Another Lu Mengli. This marquis mansion was like a stage. One exits and another enters, all performing the same play. How boring. On the 7th day after Diwu entered the mansion, Yuan Chengxi started to fall ill. First it was loss of appetite, vomiting whatever he ate. Then came weakness all over, drowsy all day long. The doctor came to examine him, said it was excessive worry, liver qi stagnation, and prescribed medicine to soothe the liver and relieve depression. The medicine didn't help. Instead, his condition got worse. He started having nightmares, always calling out Su Yunhe and Lu Mengli's names in his dreams, sometimes waking up screaming, drenched in cold sweat. Diwu was attentive in caring for his illness at first, but seeing his condition fluctuate, she gradually became negligent. Ansei passed by her courtyard and heard her throwing a tantrum inside. What a sickly wretch. If I'd known it would be like this, I might as well have stayed happy in the brothel. I stood outside the window, listened for a moment, and laughed. See, this is true love. By April, Yuan Chengxi could no longer get out of bed. He was so thin he'd lost his shape, eye sockets sunken deep, cheekbones jutting out, lying in bed like a skeleton. Only those eyes were still wide open, staring fixedly. When he looked at people, there was an indescribable fear in them. I knew what he was afraid of. He was afraid of me. Just like Lu Mengli was afraid of me. But he never said it out loud, because he cared about his pride, because he couldn't believe that he'd been reduced to this state by a woman who was not right in the head. This day, I went to see him. The smell of medicine in the room was so strong it was choking. Diwu wasn't there, only a young servant was dozing off. I waved for him to leave, and walked to the bedside alone. Yuan Chengxi's eyes suddenly widened when he saw me. His throat making sounds, wanting to speak but unable to. I sat down by the bed and quietly watched him. Husband, do you still remember what you said when you married me? He stared at me fixedly. You said marrying me was out of necessity. I smiled slightly, actually. Same for me. Marrying you was forced by my parents. But thinking about it now, marrying you wasn't so bad after all. I reached out and tucked in the corners of his blanket. At least it made me understand many things. For instance, a man's heart is the most unreliable thing. For instance, this marquis manor looks glamorous on the outside. But inside it has long been rotten through. And for instance, I leaned close to him, my voice very low. Killing someone is actually very simple. You just need to make others think it was an accident. Yuan Chengxi's pupils suddenly contracted. Su Yunhee slipped and fell into the water. Liu Mengli died of a prolonged illness. And you, my husband. What will yours be? Looking at his terrified face with a faint smile. Don't worry. I won't let you die that quickly. I want you to live. Live to feel the fear every single day. Live to remember what you've done. Live to regret. Regret marrying me. Regret bringing those women through the door. Regret underestimating me. I stood up to leave. Wait. Wait. Yan Chengsui suddenly let out a hoarse voice. I turned back. He mustered all his strength, raising a trembling hand to point at me. What do you really want? I looked at him, looked for a long time, then said softly. I want peace and quiet. This Marquis Manor was too noisy, so I sent all the noisy people away. Now, it is finally quiet. Yuan Chengsui lay on the bed, eyes wide open staring at the canopy above. Tears slid down from the corners of his eyes, mixing into his hair at the temples. He was crying. For whom? For Su Yunhai? For Liu Mengli? Or for himself? I didn't know, and I didn't want to know. I pulled open the door and walked out. On the 7th day of the 5th month, Yuan Chengsui passed away from illness. The doctor said the cause of death was melancholy knotted in the heart, excessive exhaustion, the lamp burning out of oil. The old madam fainted from crying 3 times, but still forced herself to hold the funeral. The coffin rested in the mourning hall. Mourners came and went, saying the same old words of comfort. I knelt before the altar in plain white mourning clothes, crying until I fainted several times. Everyone said, the Marchioness of Yongchang is deeply devoted. What a pity the Marquis died so young. A pity? I don't think so. On the 7th day after the funeral, Dorwu packed up valuables and tried to run, but was caught and brought back by the steward and his men. Quite a few things from the manor were found in her room, jewelry, ornaments, even one of the old madam's jade hairpins. The old madam was shaking with rage. Drag her out. Send her to the authorities. Duwu was sent to the Yamen, reportedly sentenced to exile. Whether she survives or not depends on her own fate. In June, the old madam handed over all authority of the manor to me. Nianar, this household will depend on you from now on. Rest assured, grandmother. In July, I thoroughly reorganized the manor. All the corrupt stewards were replaced, all the servants drawing empty wages were dismissed, and all the old debts were settled. The entire manor was renewed, and no one dared to defy orders behind my back anymore. August 15th, Mid-Autumn Festival. I set up a table of wine and dishes in the courtyard to admire the moon alone. The moonlight was lovely as that night by the lotus pond. I raised the wine cup, lifted it toward the moon, then slowly poured it onto the ground. To Su Yunha, to Liu Mengli, to Yuan Chengsui, to all who lived and died in this marquise's manor. I set down my wine cup and looked up at the moon. Mother, I said softly. Look, am I a bit smarter now? No one answered, only the sound of wind through the treetops, rustling like whispers. I smiled and picked up a piece of mooncake with my chopsticks, cloyingly sweet, but I liked it. This manor was finally completely quiet, so quiet, only I remained. How nice.